This video is on Chapter 11, Section 11.5. It's a continuation of the video on Section 11.5. The learning outcomes of this video are: explain the characteristics and purpose of the refractory period, explain the factors that determine action potential frequency and the 5 levels of stimulation, and describe the effect of myelination on the speed of action potential propagation, as well as other factors that affect the speed of action potential conduction. Once an action potential is produced at a given point on the plasma membrane, that area becomes less sensitive to any further stimulation. This period of time is called the refractory period. The first part of the refractory period, where complete insensitivity exists to another stimulus, so where that piece of membrane is not sensitive at all to any other stimulus, regardless of how great that stimulus is called the absolute refractory period. In many cells, this absolute refractory period occurs from the beginning of the action potential until almost the near end of repolarization. At the beginning of the action potential, depolarization occurs when the activation gates in the voltage-gated sodium channels open. At this time, the inactivation gates in the voltage-gated sodium channels are already open. Since they're already open, another stimulus wouldn't make any difference because the gates are already open. Depolarization ends as the inactivation gates close. As long as the inactivation gates are closed, no other further depolarization can occur. Near the end of repolarization, when the inactivation gates open and the activation gates close, another stimulus could cause another depolarization. It is possible, once again at that point, to stimulate another action potential if the activation gates reopen because of a strong enough stimulus. The existence of the absolute refractory period guarantees that once the action potential is begun, both the depolarization and the repolarization phases can be completed, or at least nearly completed, before another action potential can begin, and that a strong stimulus can't lead to a prolonged depolarization of the plasma membrane. The absolute refractory period has important consequences for the rate at which action potentials can be generated and for the propagation of action potentials. Propagation means that one action potential stimulates another action potential further down the membrane of the cell. The second part of the refractory period, called the relative refractory period, follows the absolute refractory period. A very strong stimulus or a stronger than threshold stimulus can initiate another action potential during this relative refractory period. So after the absolute refractory period has ended, but before the relative refractory period is completed, a sufficiently strong stimulus can produce another action potential. During the relative refractory period, the membrane is more permeable to potassium because many voltage-gated potassium channels are open. The relative refractory period ends when the voltage-gated potassium channels close and the membrane potential has returned to the resting level. A single action potential occurs in one very small area of the plasma membrane, and it doesn't occur over the entire membrane at one time or at the same time. Additionally, the same action potential does not travel down the entire length of an axon. The movement of action potentials down an axon is like a row of toppling dominoes. A single domino does not travel along the entire row. Rather, each domino triggers the next domino to fall, which triggers the next domino to fall, and so on. The row of dominoes represents the axon, and each domino represents an individual action potential. Thus, we see action potentials can propagate or spread over the plasma membrane like the dominoes did on the domino line. An action potential produced at one point on the plasma membrane stimulates the production of another action potential at the adjacent point on the same plasma membrane. In a neuron, action potentials are normally produced at the trigger zone and propagate in one direction along the axon. The location at which the next action potential is generated is different for myelinated and unmyelinated axons. In an unmyelinated axon, the next action potential will occur just next to the preceding action potential, whereas in a myelinated axon, the next action potential will occur at the next node. There are two types of action potential propagation. One, continuous conduction, and two, saltatory conduction. Continuous conduction occurs in unmyelinated axons. This is where each section of the membrane along the length of the axon generates an action potential. When an action potential is produced, the inside of the membrane becomes more positive than the outside. On the outside of the membrane, sodium from the adjacent area is attracted to the negative charges at the site of the action potential. The sodium diffuse into the cell, and once inside the cell, sodium diffuses away from its entry point. This diffusion of sodium is called a local current. As a result of the local current, the part of the membrane immediately adjacent to the action potential depolarizes. If an action potential is initiated at one end of the axon, it's propagated in one direction down the axon. The absolute refractory period ensures this one-way propagation of an action potential. It prevents the local current from stimulating the production of an action potential in the reverse direction. Saltatory conduction occurs in myelinated axons. Saltare means to leap. So with saltatory conduction, an action potential is conducted from one node of Ranvier to the next. An action potential at one node of Ranvier generates local currents that flow rapidly toward the next node of Ranvier. The lipids within the membranes of the myelin sheath act like a layer of insulation, and it forces the local currents to flow from one node of Ranvier to the next. The action potentials seem to jump from node to node. An action potential cannot occur on the membrane where this myelin coverage is, because sodium cannot penetrate through the lipids of the myelin. In addition, voltage-gated sodium channels are highly concentrated at the nodes of Ranvier, so the local current quickly flows to a node and then stimulates the voltage-gated sodium channels to open, which results in the production of an action potential as sodium rushes into the axon at that node. This diagram illustrates the action potential propagation in an unmyelinated axon. So first we see that action potentials propagate in one direction along the axon. They do not go in the opposite direction. In 2, we see that an action potential has been generated in this portion of the membrane. Sodium molecules are rushing into that axon, causing that portion of the axon to depolarize. And as all of these positive charges are moving in to that axon, a local current carries those positive charges down to the very next adjacent segment of the membrane. Then that next adjacent segment of the membrane reaches threshold and depolarizes. So then we see another action potential occur in the next adjacent portion of the membrane. The sodium rushes in to depolarize that segment of the axon, and those positive charges rushing in are carried to the next adjacent portion of the axon. And then that portion of the axon will then depolarize and another action potential will occur, and the positive charges will then flow by a current down to the next portion. And so in this way, an action potential is generated on each segment of that axon. This diagram illustrates saltatory conduction. So we see in this orange area, this is a node of Ranvier, and an action potential occurs right there. So sodium is rushing into that area of the membrane. And then through a local current, the positive charges will flow rapidly down to the next node of Ranvier. So we can see this area right here, which is the myelin sheath. So that's created from one Schwann cell. And sodium cannot get into the axon through that area because of the insulation of the myelin. But the positive charges rapidly flow down to the next node of Ranvier, and they trigger the voltage-gated sodium channels to open in that node. So then sodium rushes into that node, and another action potential occurs. Then through a current, the positive charges move down to the next node, and the positive charges cause the sodium channels there to open up. Sodium rushes in, and another action potential occurs right there. As the positive charges move in, they then flow through a local current down to the next node, and another action potential occurs at that next node. And it seems as though the action potentials are jumping from one node to the next, to the next, to the next. So this is a very fast conduction mode. The speed of action potential conduction along an axon depends on the myelination of the axon. Action potentials are conducted more rapidly in myelinated rather than unmyelinated axons because they're formed quickly at each successive node of Ranvier instead of being propagated more slowly through every single part of the axon's membrane, as in an unmyelinated axon. Action potential conduction in a myelinated axon is like a child skipping across the floor. In an unmyelinated axon, it is like the child walking heel to toe across the floor. The child, or action potential, moves more rapidly by skipping. The generation of action potentials at nodes of Ranvier occurs so rapidly that as many as 30 successive nodes of Ranvier are simultaneously in some phase of an action potential. The speed of action potential conduction is also affected by the thickness of the myelin sheath, which is determined by how many times oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system or Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system wrap around the axon. Heavily myelinated axons have a thicker myelin sheath, and they conduct action potentials more rapidly than lightly myelinated axons. The loss of the myelin sheath surrounding neurons in the central nervous system is characteristic of multiple sclerosis. In multiple sclerosis, with this loss of myelin sheath, there's an accompanying reduction in action potential speed, and this accounts for a reduced ability to regulate skeletal muscle movements. So people with multiple sclerosis don't have very fast propagation of their action potentials, and that leads to a reduced ability for them to regulate their skeletal muscle movements. In addition to myelination, the diameter of an axon affects the speed of action potential conduction. Large diameter axons conduct action potentials more rapidly than smaller diameter axons because larger diameter axons have a greater surface area. A larger surface area means there's more voltage-gated sodium channels that can open during depolarization, and this results in a greater local current, which will more rapidly stimulate the adjacent membrane areas. Nerve fibers, or axons, are classified according to their size and degree of myelination. It's not surprising that the structure of nerve fibers reflects their functions. There are 3 nerve fiber types: type A, type B, and type C. Type A fibers are large diameter myelinated axons that conduct action potentials at 15 to 120 meters per second, or in other words, 34 to 268 miles per hour. Motor neurons supplying skeletal muscles and most sensory neurons have type A fibers. A rapid response to the external environment is possible because of the rapid input of sensory information to the brain and the rapid output of action potentials to skeletal muscles. It makes sense for survival that the motor neurons supplying skeletal muscles and the sensory neurons both have type A fibers, because these are the fastest fiber type. And in a dangerous situation, you need sensory information to get to the brain very quickly, and for the motor neurons to give out commands very quickly in order to get away from a dangerous situation. Type B fibers are medium diameter and lightly myelinated axons, and they conduct action potentials at 3 to 15 meters per second, or 7 to 34 miles per hour. And type C fibers are small diameter, unmyelinated axons that conduct action potentials at 2 meters per second or less, or 4.5 miles per hour. Both the B and the C fibers are primarily part of the autonomic nervous system, which stimulates internal organs like the stomach, intestines, and the heart. The responses necessary to maintain internal homeostasis, like digestion, doesn't have to be as rapid as responses to the external environment. This ends this video on the continuation of section 11.5.